Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are back. We're going to be looking at the Torah portion for today. We're going to look at Genesis chapter 8 and also some of 9. See how long that goes. We might get to little Isaiah afterwards. Yeshayahu. We'll see how long we get through the Torah portion here. We're going to start off. By reading Genesis chapter 8. Probably we'll read from 1 down to about 19 or so. And we'll talk about it a little bit and move forward here. Let's see. Let me pull this up here. I'll just hold on one second. Okay, so let us read verse 1 down to 19.
All right. And Elohim remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And Elohim made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters subsided. And the fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were stopped, and the rain from the heaven was withheld. And the waters receded steadily from the earth. And at the end of the 150 days, the waters diminished. And in the seventh new moon, the 17th day of the new moon, the ark rested on the mountain of Ark. And the waters decreased steadily until the 10th new moon. In the 10th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, the tops of the mountains became visible. And it came to be at the end of the 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he made. And he sent out the raven, which kept going out and turning back until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for its feet and returned into the ark to him. For the waters were on the face of all the earth. So he put out his hand and took it and pulled it back into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. And the dove came to him in the evening, and see, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in its mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. And he waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove, which did not return to him again. And it came to be in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the new moon, that the waters were dried up from the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked and saw the surface of the ground was dry. And in the second new moon, on the 27th day of the new moon, the earth was dry. And Elohim spoke to Noah, saying, go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every life form of all flesh that is with you, of birds, cattle, all creeping creatures, the creeping creatures on the earth, and let them teem on the earth and bear in the increase of the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping creature, and every bird, whatever creeps on the earth, according to their kinds, went out of the ark.
Okay, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Okay, so we go back and look. Over here. Actually just read down to 21.
20?
Just read 20 and 21 also with that.
And Noah built a slaughter place to Yah and took over every clean beast and of every clean bird and offered ascending offerings on the slaughter place. And Yah smelled a soothing fragrance. And Yah said in his heart, never again shall I curse the ground because of man, although the inclination of the man's heart is evil from his youth, and never again strike all living creatures as I have done.
Okay. All right. So we look and see. We've been looking at Noah here, dealing with him going and getting on the ark and all of that. We see here, chapter 8 is basically dealing with the ending parts of Noah and his sons and family and the animals and things. The end of their journey on this. Well, I don't know how much of a journey it was. I don't know if they traveled anywhere, just were floating or whatever. But we see that there was some time. There was some time that went past. If we look back, let me see what verse that is. If we look back, where is that? Chapter 6. Where is that? Oh, chapter 7. Let me go to it. Chapter 7, verse 6. I can't find my cursor. Oh, there it goes. Chapter 7, verse 6.
You want to read that?
Hold on. Let me see what. Yeah. Hold on. 6. Hold on. 7, 6, down to 11. 6 down to 11.
Now Noah was 600. Now Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean beasts and of the beasts that are unclean, and of the birds and of all that creep on the earth. 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, as Elohim had commanded Noah. And it came to be after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second new moon, the 17th day of the moon, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of the heavens were open, and the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay, very good. So we see over here when it started, Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth and when they started coming down. When we get over to the next chapter, it said that it was 601 years into a situation. Also, we see 8. Okay, also we see over here now it's the 10th new moon. Over there was what did it say? The first new moon?
It says what?
7.
Yeah, 7. It says
Oh, it was the second month
the second.
over there whenever it started raining. Now you over here in the 10th new moon. And we've seen over here further down where he was 601 years. So it was some time. Oh, verse 13. It came to be in the 601st year. Let's talk about in regards to Noah in the first month of the new moon and when it dried up. So you talking about a whole year done went past, right? Because it was the first month. No, it was the second month back in chapter 7, right? 7, 11. Yeah, 7:11 said it was the 600th year of his life, and it was the second month. So over here, it is the 601st year of his life, and you're in the first month of the year. So from the time that the water started coming until all the water was gone, and it was, the ground was dry over here. So you're talking about a lot of time that went by while they was on that boat. We're gonna deal with that time a little bit later, but I wanted to talk about a little bit. We mentioned this last week, dealing with the fact that when they got off of the ark, it says that Noah built a slaughtering place to Yahweh and took every clean beast and of every clean bird and offered ascending offerings on the slaughter place. So we know that Noah had some uh, understanding as to, first of all, what was clean and unclean, because he made a separation, even getting them um, onto the boat in the first place. But everything that's clean, you don't necessarily offer as an offering, just because it's clean. You only offer certain things as an offering. So I'm saying even now you have a more kind of a higher level of understanding that he would have to even know what was something that he should be offering unto the Almighty. We can only assume that he is. We know from verse 21 that says, "And Yahweh smelled a soothing fragrance." So he accepted and was pleased with the offering that was given. But I'm saying that Noah was, in terms of his life and in terms of even got him to that place in the first place, in terms of being one that was righteous, his righteousness had to be based on something. And I'm saying that righteousness was based on what was told to the fathers and passed down through the generations, because he wasn't just making up these designations in terms of clean and unclean. There had to have been a standard in place that he was able to know and do. That was, and when he was able to complete it, that thing be a um, sweet savor, as it says in the King James. Over here it says smelled a soothing fragrance. Um, as a result of these offerings that he brought. Um, it's interesting because when we think about the law of Moses and the so-called law of Moses and the covenant that was made at Sinai, um, you know, people talk about the law being from uh, the foundation from forever. But we have no way of knowing what it was that Noah and them were doing. We have no way of knowing what their standard of righteousness was because the scriptures don't tell us about that part. We just see that they did things like even with Cain and Abel, how Abel was bringing an offering that was pleasing to the Almighty, and then Cain was bringing an offering that wasn't. Right, so we know that there had to have been some type of standard, but we don't know what that is. I hear people talk about the saying that the Torah was from the beginning, but at the same time, we see certain things that were permissible pre-Torah that aren't permissible, from Sinai. So there's definitely a distinction that was made. Now, people say, well, the Bible says that the Most High changes not. Right? People say that. But we're able to look in the scriptures and see where Jacob married two sisters. By the time the Torah comes down, that's illegal. Right? It's illegal. So in saying that, you're not saying that the Most High changed, but the law that what he considered to be permissible for us, that did change. Right? So if we say that Torah is from the beginning, we have problems when we see that there's differences in the standard of righteousness from before Sinai until now. They just ended up at some random place when they got off the boat. They got off the boat and gave an offering. And we see that happen with all the forefathers as they go. They have the Most High blesses them right there where they are. They build an altar and sacrifice unto the Almighty. By the time the Torah comes down, he goes and says, this place that I put my name is where you bring an offering. Not just anywhere you want, but this place over here where I put my name. So these things are making the case for the Torah being, I'm saying the Torah that was given on Sinai as having a special significance over and above these other things that went on before. Did the Most High have a standard of righteousness? He obviously did, but that's why he judged the people for their lack of righteousness, and that's why he blessed Noah for his adherence to that standard of righteousness. But just based on the very fact that Noah, just like all of these other forefathers, when we see, wherever they are, when they feel that unctioning to bring an offering to the Father, they just do it just right where they're at. They didn't have to go and take it to a specific place. They built the altar right where they were. And the Most High said, it says in 21, and Yahweh smell a soothing fragrance. And of course, we're not talking about the Most High's, giant nostrils, right? It's not meaning that he smelled what it smelled like, and it smelled like if the neighbors start barbecuing, it's a soothing fragrance in your nostrils, right? It's not that. It's showing that he's pleased with this particular sacrifice. But I want to look at this word here. This is in verse 21. I want to look at this word. Hold on a second. Let me pull this thing down here. Can't really see this up good. Bibles. Oh, right here. Split window. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, he smelled a sweet savor over here. This. Oh, wait a second. Oh, we can look at it on there. Oh, that's wrong. Okay, soothing, quieting, tranquilizing. So it's translated as sweet. But you think about something that's soothing, it's kind of you think about something that's soothing, it's kind of relative to a situation. Some things that's soothing to some people could sit around listen to Mozart and all that. What's that classical music and that be soothing to them, right? To me, it's not really soothing to me, classical music, because it don't have no beat. There ain't no rhythm, right? Well, unless it does have a rhythm, then that makes me like it. But I'm saying that the idea of something that's soothing to you is something that's relative to you, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with smell necessarily, or even taste, because this word is translated as sweet. But just the fact that this thing that's going on is causing a delight within you. But again, here we're talking about this sacrifice that's going up that is pleasing to the Almighty. So when we think about this idea of soothing, when you think about sacrifices in the in their totality. Oh, look at that. When you think about these sacrifices, here is not a problem with sin. Here, this is more of just kind of a Thanksgiving offering. But when we think about um, a sin offering, that sin offering is covering up some offense that you've done. So if I'm feeling a way towards you, I'm uptight, I'm ready to meet you with some wrath, and then now I receive this sacrifice, and then so now that feeling that I have towards you is soothed, right? I might be a little uptight, ready to act, right? But because of this thing that comes up, it kind of chills me out, right? It quiets the situation, right? It brings down the wrath, right? So you have this going on with these ascending offerings, is what it says over there in verse 20. It makes a sweet savor. This word over here, get down to this, is this word is Rayah. Rayah. That sounds like another word we know, don't it? Rayah. Ruach. Yeah. Well, that's interesting because this word here is from this word Rayah is from the word
What?
I didn't have it on the right thing over here. I made some adjustments on my screen. The word Rayah is from the word Ruach. Right, they're related. So you take this vav and make it a yod, you have Rayah. But this word over here, let's see the similarities. This word reach, which is savor, means scent, fragrance, aroma, odor, scent, odor of soothing, translated as savor, smell, scent, odor, as if blown, scent, so on and so forth. But the word that it comes from, its root, is ruach, which properly means to blow or breath. We typically translate ruach as spirit, but it literally means wind or to blow or a breath, right? So when we look at what's going on over here, this physical thing, they're taking animals and burning these animals, and smoke's going up, and but it so this physical thing that's going on has these spiritual implications, right? The smoke is going up. They're literally burning these animals, and the smoke is going up, and it's creating a sweet savor to the Almighty, right? So we're seeing where the Most High is, who is spirit, right? Scripture says that he is spirit, right? So we must worship him in spirit and in truth. So, but he's pleased with what's going on in this physical realm, and these physical things have these spiritual implications, right? So we see that with these offerings that he's giving up, that are again creating this sweet savor unto the Almighty, this thing that he's pleased with. Okay, so looking further at verse 21, he says, after all this, never again shall I curse the ground because of man, although the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and never again strike all living creatures as I have done. Right? So in spite of the fact that, in spite of the, how's that reading? You got KJV? Who got KJV?
I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil.
Hold on, it's for the, what is that?
For the imagination.
Oh, for the imagination. Okay.
Man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done.
Okay, so it's basically almost the same. So although the inclination of man's heart is still going to be evil, he didn't change nothing whenever he killed everybody. He started off with a righteous man, but he started off with a righteous man before, though, right? So even though the inclination of man's heart is still going to be evil from your youth, he said, never again will I strike all living creatures as I have done. The way he did it, he's not going to do it that though. I might take y'all some other way, but this way, this way,
meaning by water.
Yeah. He says specifically in another place, that will look, that's in the next chapter, that water is not going to be the thing that's going to take you out. He hints to it here. He says it specifically in the next chapter. But he's basically saying, never again will I strike all living creatures the way that he did it this time. He's not going to do anymore, in spite of the fact that the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth. So, when we look at these things, we're forever able to see a necessity for Messiah to come, right? Because when we look back at the fact that the Most High had to literally wipe out mankind and start over again, because of the wickedness of man's heart. He did all of that, and he's back to square one again. But the inclination of man's heart is still the same, though. Right? So even though he made that, he hit the reset button, there wasn't an upgrade. The upgrade didn't happen yet. Right? But looking backwards, we could see, again, always we could see the need for the upgrade and the necessity for the fulfillment of Genesis chapter 3 and 15. And I shall put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. You know, we see that throughout time there is a necessity for there to be this change in man. We're given structure, we're given a standard, we're given laws. The Most High tells us exactly what he wants for us to do. But again, at the end of the day, it don't change your heart. I can sit up here and tell you what you're supposed to be doing, but unless your heart is transformed, it don't matter. Right. It's all kind of just like a mental thing. And that's why, you know, that's one of the reasons, just kind of as a side note, where, you know, when we look at, you know, people today, especially where, you know, there's this thing that you know, that's connected to your physical identity. If I find out who my forefathers are, all of a sudden now I'm able to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, and be right with the Father. But these people knew who they was. They knew who they was. That's not the thing that causes you to be righteous. You know, this is something that's just a matter of fact. They know, these people knew exactly where they came from, right? But in spite of that, they still, the Most High said right there, although the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Having that particular knowledge of what you're supposed to be doing don't change the fact that the inclination of your heart is evil from his youth. It don't change that. So I'm saying all that just to say, when we see what's going on over here, you know, on this side of Messiah, we're able to look back and see that, you know, there has always been a necessity for the Most High to send his son Yeshua to live and die and go back to the Father and send back his spirit so that we can walk in righteousness through the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so lastly in this chapter here, it says, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So we have kind of a promise that the Most High gives here over here. First of all, he's saying that he's never going to curse the ground because of man like this, like he did. He's not going to kill, he's not going to wipe out all mankind the way that he did over here. And then he's also saying in verse 22, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. These life cycles, these cycles that nature's cycles that obviously were interrupted while the earth was flooded. The whole earth was flooded, right? All of the things that was on the earth is said that breathed life was covered with water. When we see how the birds was going out, it went out, it was able to find a branch, right? But when it was dry, then it didn't come back. When all it had was a branch, it wasn't trying to just be out there with just branches sticking out of water. It wanted to, be able to just do all of that stuff. So we're able to know that, it talks about how further back, it talks about how the mountains was covered with water. So everything was disrupted. And definitely now when we're thinking about this idea of the nature's cycles, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, if everything was covered up with water, there should have been some ice coverage, it seems, somewhere. Stuff freezing up. But it seems that because and again, there was on this boat for like a year's time that went past. Right. So in the cycle of things, there should have been a whole lot of things going on, but all of those things were disrupted by this event that happened. So part of the thing that the Most High is saying here is that as long as the earth remains, these life cycles, these cycles of nature shall not cease, because they probably ceased while this thing was going on, which causes me to think about the fact that, when we think about look over at Matthew. We don't look up Matthew real quick because Yeshua does this a lot. It's just as a specific example of just one time when he does it. Let's see here, Matthew 13:31. Read 31 and 32, dude.
All right. And another parable he put before them, saying, the reign of the heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is less than all the seeds. But when it is grown, it is greater than the plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the heaven come and dwell in his branches.
Yeshua, when he taught, spoke, not only did he speak in parables, but a lot of his parables were had to do with agriculture. A lot of the parables that Yeshua spoke dealt with nature and agriculture. Over here, he says the reign of the heavens, the kingdom of heaven is like a seed which a man took and sowed in his field.
Right.
But if we don't really understand what that even means, what he's not saying nothing to us then, right?
Right.
We don't know what that even means. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed planted by a sower in the seed, but I don't have any idea what that even means.
You know?
Well, I'm saying I need to know what that means in order to get what he's saying.
Oh, okay. I understand what you're saying. We need to know what that means.
We got to know what
Right,
does
what. Said after, but it says less than all seeds, but it's grown. But when it's grown, it's greater than the plants and becomes a tree.
Right. So that's giving you an idea. But have you ever seen a mustard seed?
Mhm.
I heard it's so
I seen
small.
one. Little tiny.
It's this little baby, little minute little thing.
Is it smaller than mice poop?
Heck shit.
Probably.
I remember in class, in art class, we had to get them in
Oh my goodness.
plastic over. It was so daggone tiny, you would lose it.
Yeah.
So I would grab like a handful of them just in
Right.
case I lose one.
Yeah.
But they're so tiny, it's like the granules of sand.
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting. Now, see, it's interesting the things that we go to in order to. This is how we compare things. I don't know how big a mustard seed is, but I know how big this other thing is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so but hold on, Moshe, how's he keep getting out? Okay, so let's go back over here. So Yeshua, when he spoke, a lot of times speaks to us. I'm saying not only in parables, but he's relaying back to agriculture. When we think about the feast days almost all are directly connected to agriculture.
Is it because of the natural growth?
I think it has to do. I think it has to do with that. Absolutely.
Like everything, like you need the water you need that to make it like like the rain. Like when I think of rain, like after rain comes sunshine, as a parable as like after pain or whatever, joy comes in the morning.
Yeah. 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 So we have all of these things that go on around us that could be teaching us things if we knew about those things. And over here,
and the scripture says, "Doth not nature teach you?"
I was really turning, flipping
And you
over
know
to
what?
Romans.
That is beautiful.
I was really flipping over.
Because I was explaining about how the evening starts a new day, and I was letting people know that nature will teach you a lot of things. Look at the birds. They be chirping like around. They start around 2:30, 3 a.m. Get to singing praise to y'all, thanking for a new yawn. So I said we can learn a lot from nature. Look at the bees. Look at all the swarms of bees. Remember that all the swarms of bees are attached to that hatchback of that car, all because of the queen was trapped. It was a whole bunch of them swarming there. They was on there for like 2 days. We can learn a lot from that because they have more unity than we do. Ants work together too.
Ants be like a whole. They be like a whole.
Man, whole colony.
Yeah. Like, how do they know to be that organized?
Yeah, that's creation of y'all.
Yeah.
They got commanders.
Hey.
If you look at Romans 8 and 19, I think that's what I was looking for. Hold on a second. Oh yeah. 19 through 22. Romans 8, 19 through 22. Let me put it up here. Hold on. Okay, yeah. Read from 19 down to 22.
For the intense longing of the creation of eagerly waits for the revealing of the Son of Elohim.
Okay, hold on. Read 19 again.
I'm going to do that again too. This is in Rome. Okay, for the intense longing of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the Son of Elohim.
All right, so that's talking about all of creation. That's talking about all of creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Elohim.
That's deep right there.
Okay, read 20.
For the creation was subjected to fertility not from choice, but because of him who subjected it in anticipation
Yeah, to 22.
that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage to corruption into the esteemed freedom of the children of Elohim. For we know that all the creation groans together and suffer the pains of childbirth together until now.
Okay, so when we look back at Genesis, when there Adam and Hava ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, everybody paid the price. Everything, I should say. Right? But because before, Adam, all he had to do was just go around and just pick his little stuff and eat from whatever. But then now, because of sin, because of that transgression, now there's thorns and thistles now, where you guys sit up there and work and eat from the sweat of your brow. But that's going on when you go out and he said that's why we got farmers.
That's how we got what?
Farmers.
For real.
See, but when you think,
meat eaters.
well,
Meat eaters back then?
not then.
Yeah.
But we get introduced to meat over here in this other chapter over here that we didn't really look at. But I'm saying that we live in this time where we could just go, we want some food, we just go over there to the store. Just go to Walmart. But
It ain't pure no more.
Say that?
It ain't pure no more. I don't care if it's organic. Most of that stuff is like,
well, it's hard for you to get real food. You could get it, but it costs more.
right.
The stuff that's readily available is mostly garbage.
They just feed it.
But going back to that verse in terms of the understanding nature and all of that, we're disconnected from all of that. We're disconnected from these times and the seasons, right? Seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter. We're disconnected from nature, right? We looked over in Romans talk about the creation is waiting. It itself is all creation groans together and suffers the pain of childbirth together until now. Nature understands that they're the place that we're in. Nature understands that. But humans as people, we just go by day to day. Everything's all good, right? Right. With not a thought about the big picture, the scope of things. But when we think about that, again, back in Genesis in 8 and 22, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, the idea of this continuity that the Most High provides, a time of planting and the time of harvest, the time when cold comes, right? The time when heat comes, summer and winter, and these seasons. How Yeshua, again, whenever he's given all these parables, he's speaking these parables and connecting them with nature. And we look at the feast days; they're connected with the times and the seasons. We have to be in tune with these things because, again, we think about the verses before where that physical thing that they was doing, that taking these animals and burning these animals and being a sweet savor to the Almighty, all of these physical things that we see got spiritual implications going along with it. These physical cycles You think there's not a connection between the physical cycles of life and the physical cycles of the seasons? You don't think that there's that translate over into the spiritual realm? I don't see how it don't. But we have to be able to get back in touch with those things. And one of the things that we can do in order to help us to do that is just understanding all of the significances of the feast days, because the feast days are all inside of the seasons, right? We're in um the first feast that we get to is at springtime. It's in the new year, right? Is new year in this time that we live in is in the winter time, which doesn't make any sense, right? It's just backwards. Everything's dead. You look outside and
All the trees.
yeah, the trees is dead. Everything's dormant. But for us, a new year is when everything begins to start growing again, right? When around, right before Passover time.
What's crazy on the Passover? What I noticed is how everybody, like, prior to me coming into the truth, I went by the calendar on Easter. That's when we celebrate. But like whoever are the creators of the calendar, they know the same day. Like they know the days that we have because Passover is is on the same. Our first day of Passover is the same as their Easter day, but their Easter day changes because they just go like they're counting. Like basically, they're counting on the same calendar that we. They're counting on the same days we count, but they just put it on a calendar. So that's why like there's a flip flop on March. It might be March 20th this month.
Yeah.
But they're counting on the same days we are. So our Passover first day be their Easter day. But it's just weird.
Yeah,
Everybody knows it.
this year, the first day of unleavened bread literally was on Ishtar. It literally was on that day. And you're right, it's not by mistake. They put the way that Easter is calculated um, is close to the way that the the New Year in on the heat from the Hebrew calendar is calculated. It's not the same. It don't work out like that every year, but it's definitely close. So this year it was right in step. Sometimes they're weeks off, but they're always it's close a lot of times. And when you think about that, when you start to think about things, you see that these things are just not, it's just not like the figment of our imagination. Like people are looking into these things and been know about it, but they're not telling you about it. And nobody's looking to investigate or find out, about these things. They just go with it and do things and don't even know why things are the way that they are.
They don't question what's not normal. If it's normal, they won't question it. But if it's not, they'll question.
Right.
Like they'll question me on. I had a real good conversation, and I'm kind of glad that we did have that topic that we could have eaten up the whole thing because it gave me a different way to talk to other people in regards to when they're getting off the track. But I was talking to an individual. He was I'm not gonna say gay on that thing, but he was gay or whatever. But we had a level headed conversation or whatever in regards to like the normal stuff and stuff like that there in regards to our man is like as humans, this man that we got is too much for us. Like we always wanna like we'll go with the flow and everything that's just regular. But if someone's doing something different, it's like, oh, why this? Or we'll even question, like, why do you know God's like, no, like stuff like that. Or you want to figure out how long human beings been on Earth. Well, if the Earth was this old, but humans are like, you want to answer to everything, but you're not going to ask the answer as to why we put a star at the top of the tree. Yeah. Well, what's the star even mean? Or why, like, why, or
doing rabbits and eggs for Easter? Like, or why is it Christmas is about the birth? Why are we playing I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? It's not like they be singing straight Jesus songs. We're singing Feliz Navidad. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Christmas tree. Like, nothing's like really when people get in the Christmas spirit. It's not like if it is supposed to be about the birth of Yeshua. It's not like that's strictly the mood that they put people in. It's just all of a sudden everybody just on this giving trip. Like it's just different.
Yeah.
You know, we won't question that. We'll go with it. It's cool to talk about that. You know, and not ask for where did the Santa Claus story come from.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that has to happen is, you know, with the powers that be mainstream, they put these things in place. And like you say, everybody, I can't, there's a couple times in life where I kind of had these kind of surreal things. One of the moments was whenever I used to take the T downtown. You get on the T. There's a gang of people on there. Nobody talks to each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're standing there like this next to somebody, and you're trying not to touch them. You know what I mean? The door's open, and everybody just goes out like some water rushing through, and everybody's going off to all their little. You might not even look at somebody. I mean, if you look at somebody, then you force have to talk to them.
Especially when they had the one seat ones, there was one seaters. People in the one seat never looked at you.
Yeah, all right. So there's that. It always made me think about this fact that, you know, you get up, you go down to this place to the people mover, you get on there, it takes you downtown. Everybody just swarms out and goes to their little places wherever they're going. Just program. I'm sitting over there. I'm working over in Oakland now, and on a little busy little intersection, and
everybody's in their car?
No, everybody stands on the corner until that sound goes off. And then when the sound goes off, then you can cross the street. It don't matter if ain't no cars coming. Them people won't even cross the street unless they start to go beep boop, beep boop, then you cross the street. You know, when you see the little walking sign. It's like you're just programmed just to do whatever they say do.
I did a study on that in school, even about how naturally we walk on the right side. Like it's not a law though. So if somebody walks on the opposite side,
I get mad sometimes.
Yeah, you'll get. But what are you mad for?
Because I'm programmed. That's why I'm mad.
Like, why are you over here? Like, you know,
I know you're supposed to be over there. Like you get to the point where you don't even want to move. Like, and you mad if I gotta turn my body because it's just programmed.
No, and that's crazy because you really will be mad if somebody's not on the right. So that's not a law. Like,
well, it is a law
in your head.
Yeah, that they made up. But bringing it to this though, right? We're disconnected from the actual laws though. The stuff that governs the world. Those things we're disconnected from.
We're programmed to whatever they got. That's what we're supposed to be programmed to.
On an automatic note, like I be fighting. I mean, this is just not testimony. I be fighting with like I quit everything. No, I quit most of for the most part, every thing I did, I quit cold turkey. But the closer I get to him, the more I see that there's still more things that need to be removed.
No.
And it's and one of the major things is this up and down battle with emotions and like just that being a struggle, but everything else, like you said, like everything else for me to naturally be able to do this on an automatic schedule. I automatically do things a certain way just because I've been programmed in this whole life. You know, this program is like taking a little longer than just when it should be automatic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're disconnected. We're disconnected from the natural cycle of things. And this thing that the Most High, when he's saying this to Noah, it's supposed to be like a soothing thing. I'm not going to break up the cycles of life anymore. As long as the earth remains, you're going to have these things that you could depend on. It's going to be summer and winter. It's going to be seed time and harvest. It's going to be cold and heat. Like he's giving him that as like a security thing, like to know that you're going to have this cycle of life and it's going to keep on going. But it don't mean nothing to us because we're not connected to it. We're disconnected. And the world that we live in on purpose, takes us away from those things and even understanding it. Okay, let's go back over here. Let's go back over to Genesis. Okay, so let's here, hold on 1 second. 1 through 6. Let's read. Somebody read Genesis 9, just down to the 6th verse.
And Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth and every bird of the heavens, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they have been given. Every creeping creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. But do not eat flesh with its life, its blood. But your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it, and from the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed, for in the image of Elohim he has made man."
Okay, very good. So, like you said, before the flood, before we had this kind of reset thing, pre-flood, what he just said there about every creeping thing, he said about every seed bearing fruit. Let me find it. Let's see here. Let me look at it. So it up this way.
Is it Genesis 1:9?
129. Yeah. And Elohim said, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be meat." So when we look back over there, it's saying all these vegetables and green things, all these things that bear seeds, eat that. That's food for you. And then now for the first time over here, okay, so we have this other change over here. But somebody wants to up here and say, the Most High changes not. This is not him changing. He's giving you different options. It don't have nothing to do with him changing. But we can clearly see he's saying something that he's saying here for the first time that he never said before. And even in the saying, verse 3, every creeping creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. There's an addendum right here that just got made. by the Most High. He's not changing, but he definitely has made allowances, different allowances for man, right here.
Well, why do you do that?
Why? I don't know.
But not like why, like question him, but like I wonder what made. I don't really care that much, but like he must have knew that. Well, he did know. He knew what type of hunger, what type of how we were going to be. Obviously, we knew that we were going to be satisfied with just fruit and vegetables.
I mean, but
He
you're
knew
saying that as a meat eater, though.
Yeah.
But if you was like a vegetarian person, you know, you could be fine with not eating meat.
But that ratio is small.
I mean, I
But just
guess
because that ratio is small don't mean with other people going right. Just like the holidays or whatever, the ratio is smaller. The people that's actually keeping it Passover and doing.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
he just knew, like he knew it was like we was gonna be there.
I think that
I'll put that in there.
I think that when we look and see, Paul talks about how Paul said everything's lawful, but everything is not expedient. Just because you're able to do a thing, don't necessarily make that thing be the best thing for you.
Right.
These when we look back at the ancient people, not even the ancients, you could just look at when I watched this vegetarian, I think it was knives, forks versus spoons or something like that. One of these vegetarian documentaries, and they were forks over knives.
Right. That's a good one.
Yeah. So they looked at the diet of the Chinese people. They ate a lot of rice and a lot of vegetables. They ate meat, but not a whole bunch of meat. And in them, they was able to see that, you know, they was able to add the eating of meat to the cause of all of these diseases and things. Not that it's meat, but the amount of meat that we eat. Where we sit up here and you go to a restaurant like one of them steakhouse places, and you got a big old piece of meat that's big as the plate and a potato on there, and then that's your whole thing, right? So we take things to the extreme where probably you could just be a vegetarian, be fine. Or you could be like how in my mind, I feel like I don't want to be like all the way vegetarian. I just want to eat a little bit of meat. But my problem is that I think I might be addicted to this meat thing. And I want to have meat. I gotta have it, right? I can't just do it the way that I think that I should. And I don't think it should be all or nothing.
But you know what? What's crazy because the way they even make it is like the meat is the main course of the meal.
Yeah,
like it's just the
right. It should be reversed. It should be reversed of that. Wait, that's all the meat you gonna give me?
Right. Exactly.
Now, I guess what I'm finding out of this whole what I found is it's just like, okay, so I talked to my bonus son and I'm trying to get them to let go of their pork and shrimp and but it's a split household, you know what I mean? So, but when I was talking to him yesterday, I'm like, well, it's not like y'all don't. It's not like we can't. There's not meat we can eat. So I guess I'm just finding this as it's just amazing how much compassion he has for just knowing us that much to even give us that leniency to, because he knows everything. Just okay, well, you have the beast those beasts that you can eat or whatever, because he knows. But no, it's really not good for you, especially red meat. Even though we're allowed to eat red meat, I just found out that it takes. So to digest, so that's not good for you. But he doesn't allow it because he knows what we want. So that's just how much love that he got for us. All right, you know what I mean? I prefer this, but I'll allow you to eat these clean ones or whatever. But of course, that don't but that's grace.
Yeah.
That's something like, here you go, like you eat some of this meat.
Or maybe he figured, eat a piece of meat and then stay in his stomach for a week. You wouldn't eat another piece of meat.
Yeah. And that's probably what they did though, because they was in tune. We're out of tune.
Give me a chicken. So it will still eat. It will still eat some meat.
Let's consider too. Our people, when we had land, these they wasn't going to the store and saying, "Let me get these steaks." They was slaughtering their own cows and chickens.
Right.
So it ain't every day I'm gonna slaughter a cow.
Right.
No.
You didn't have it like that. You didn't have a refrigerator to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna slaughter this cow and put it away and all this time and all that." So it's another level to consider. It's like, all right, so yeah,
So
we're gonna slaughter this. We're gonna have a feast.
It was a sometime thing.
Yeah, with a whole bunch of you feeding a whole
Village.
a whole village. Yeah.
We saw that. We saw that in Puerto Rico. We was walking past, and that's crazy that we walking past. It's the whole I ate pork at the time still, but there's a whole pig, like a whole. I never seen it like this in my life.
On a spit.
Yes, that was their dinner for the I'm talking a whole pig. He's just spinning around the grill. The things coming through his body, cleaned out, just grilling. Whole pig. He was flat.
Yeah.
I got a picture.
There's a couple things I wanted to say. So I know we're supposed to eat seed yielding fruit.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So much fruit.
But are we supposed to be eating lettuce? It don't have seeds. And
No. I don't know if I talked about this before, but
You said lettuce first?
Yeah.
like collard greens got seeds.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
It does.
And I didn't know this my whole life. I just learned a couple years ago. If you plant collard greens and just pick the leaves off and leave the stem over the winter, this is back to the seasons again. Over the winter, you let it stay over there. By the time of springtime comes, these little things are going to sprout off with the seeds. But if you're not growing it, somebody could say like what you saying. Well, wait a second, lettuce that don't have seeds.
I seen
It got to start from a seed sometime. We just don't get it at that stage. But if you let it go through its cycles, the seeds will be there.
We did it. And another thing too, a seed is not always a little thing that is,
Yeah, seed.
yeah. So because we did it too, we was like, all right, we took the stock of the lettuce, put it in the water. After we cut it all off and ate it, and it was great. We was like, wow. So you can just take that, replant it. A lot of times you eating the seed, it's within the actual, whatever you're eating, So
Another thing is going backwards a little bit. What do you think made the Most High say that he wouldn't, destroy all of the creatures the way he did? Do you think he after it was done, he was like, oh man, I shouldn't have did that.
Well, remember, I know that is, I really feel like, I don't know I feel like drowning is a worse way to die. There's probably ways that's worse, but in my mind, drowning's got to be just terrible way. But remember, he said it specifically that he's not going to kill everybody. He's not going to kill all mankind this way. So there's really two things that he's talking about. I'm not going to kill all of mankind off, and I'm not going to do it this way. Because it's going to be a judgment where a whole bunch of people, but it's not going to be all mankind, and it's not going to be water. So I think that, with that in mind, we got to think about, those two kind of parts of what he's saying, because again, the Most High, The Most High is holy. He's the epitome of set apartness. Unrighteousness can't be in his situation. He's always ready to remove unrighteousness from the situation. So I don't think so much as the idea of him saying that he wasn't going to do it because of how bad it was. Because when you think about Yeshua talking about everlasting punishment in this lake of fire, um, I gotta recant my statement that I just talked about just a second ago. I don't know what it would be like to just sit up there and just burn up. Like what got in that guy's mind that set stuff on fire down in Washington? Like because you're not even the fire is not really gonna kill you. You're just really torturing yourself. You know what I mean? Like you're just sitting there, you're so hot that your skin just start falling off of you from the heat. I'm saying all I have to say there's a worse thing that is in store for the cleansing, the re-cleansing of this earth.
And a judgment part, at least like the people that is going to live through it. It's different than like Noah. It was only him and his family, and there wasn't a judgment. Like it was more so like it's not like on a wide scale to whereas the people that's going to be left is going to be able to live to talk about this judgment and stuff like that too. I don't know how much it's going to be afterward. I guess I'll see it now.
Well, I mean, it definitely was judgment on the earth. He was literally cleansing the earth that had been defiled.
So how was it a judgment though when Jesus flooded it? Like all he did was tell Noah. So it was a judgment.
Well, yeah, he killed all living things that
Did
breathe.
they know why they died, or did it just rain and they died?
Well, I think whether you know why you're being judged doesn't take away the fact that you're actually being judged.
Okay.
Can you imagine that? Like you like just at a cookout or something.
Yeah.
And you just pour
That's
it
how it's
in,
gonna be.
and
That's
boom,
That's how it's gonna be when he comes. It's gonna be people. That's what I used to think. From going to church, I used to think when they say like a thief in the night, I used to think of like how you don't know when the thief is coming. That would be my perception of what they're preaching. That's kind of how they be preaching, but they don't really preach that whole concept. Like a thief in the night is like it's bigger than just not knowing when it's coming. Like it's gonna be so different for those who are like not right, never got right. It's gonna be just like it's gonna creep. They just gonna be in the middle of it with this.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that's what it is. The whole thief in the night concept for those who aren't prepared, they're gonna get caught unawares. Yeah, probably literally and figuratively. But when you think about the righteous, we have watchers. So when the thief's coming, you're gonna see that he's coming if you watching, right? But if you're not watching, you're just reveling in your whatever, right? You don't know, right? Until he's right up on you. We supposed to see him on the way.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day. Somebody from all that. I haven't talked to him in a while, but as we were talking, he was talking about being rich and like how he was almost there. He was supposed to do this movie thing and this, that, and the other. I'm listening to him like, man, did you watch him and see what's going on? You talking about still being rich? It's almost over. Hey, don't you see the signs? Like, I'm thinking like people are still literally just oblivious. And they see all of this stuff going on. Russia got a nuclear device called Satan.
Well, that's the thing. They don't see it. It's like once you get into this world, like it's so easy. Especially now with information just infinite. Whatever you're into, you can go into a hole and just be straight focused, zero in on that tunnel vision. And you watch the news and they'll see signs and you'll be like, but everybody interprets it different. Oh, there's always bad news. There's always that. But then you have people in the mindset, I gotta eat them. So I'm gonna still do what I gotta do. That's them over there. And they don't picture the whole grand thing. That's why, my biggest thing is always prophecy. Because that dictates what I should be doing, what my mindset should be at the time. Because if the Most High said this was going to happen, or look out for these things, and you correlate them with this, it's like, oh, okay, well, there's no point for me to go all the way here when ultimately, like she was saying, being aware of his will or his plan, because he's gonna cancel my plan out eventually. So it's like, what am I putting all this effort and stuff into when this is his ultimate plan? So I need to be focusing on this and just wait till we get to that point to see what happens. So yeah, most people can't.
Which is, it gives strength to the idea of understanding these cycles of life, because from a spiritual perspective, we got to understand, where the Most High is in these cycles of things. And, we got to, as hard as it may be, to kind of get ourselves in tune with these cycles that the Most High has set up, and move away from these things that we're placed in by our societal norms. When you sit back and look at things and assess these things, you're able to see, like, wait a second, I've been conditioned to do this. I'm thinking about this in a particular way because somebody wants me to be thinking about it like this. You know what I mean?
Social engineering.
It's interesting. So when we look over here in Genesis chapter 9 and we see over here, he's given us this meat that we could eat, doesn't mean that we need to have all meat on the same level. Like, we're able to eat meat, it's able to be food for us, but I mean the evidence really shows us that we really need to, like how they got that pyramid thing where they tell the food pyramid thing.
Yeah.
Like, that thing is clear, is economical. That thing is made by the people who grow and sell food.
Right.
So they tell you that you need to eat a whole bunch of this, because if you eat a whole bunch of this, by the way, we're gonna get rich because it costs a lot of money. You know what I mean, to do this. But again, putting it back over to with these seasons and understanding all these things, when we try to kind of adjust our lives to the way that the Most High created for it to be, we're able to have balance in this situation. Again, we don't have to, you don't have to just not have this meat, because the Most High obviously said we could have it. But we have to be able to get to a place where we're doing these things in a way that's that's good for ourselves, and understanding that we're it's just another layer that we have to shave off of our situation, bringing us back to what the Most High has for us to be doing. When I see over here, where he says, and Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and increase and fill the earth. You automatically think about having babies, right? You automatically think about, the people growing. But the other thing that I was thinking of in addition to that was the fact that when you dealing with Noah, who was the only one who was living righteous, when you think about being fruitful and increasing, from other levels, when you think about how when we look at Deuteronomy, where it talks about if you do my commandments, and he gives you all these blessings, these all of the blessings that he's given is basically physical blessings that you're going to receive. Being fruitful in life and increasing like in life as a result of walking in righteousness. So why would we just only think that when he's talking about being fruitful and increasing and filling the earth, over here is only dealing with just bodies, just filling the earth with bodies, right? Best case scenarios for Noah to be passing that righteousness on to his seed, his children, and them filling the earth with more righteous people, right? And not just thinking about it in terms of, just having babies, right? But reproducing that righteousness that he had in his own self, right? When we look in now, when we move forward into Israel, as far as Israel's concerned, that's one of the things that as Israel we are to do with our children, not just to have children, but to instill in our children the ways so that they go ahead and continue on with, this life. So I think that when we think about, looking at Noah, when we think about Noah is a good representation of how we as Israel should be in terms of being that one that is able to perpetuate that righteousness, being that one that people are able to look to and see the ways that the Most High set in place, and the continuation of that. Um, you know, um, it's hard when we live in this place that is again separated from nature and separated from these cycles that the Most High put in place, and we have these new kind of destructive cycles that have been put in place by the mainstream world, but we have to be able to pull away from that, and instead of pushing forward this down spiraling cycles and agendas that are in place, is moving forward with what the Most High has for his people, and manifesting this Genesis 9:1 in terms of being fruitful and increasing and filling the earth with righteousness. Okay, so if we look over here in verse 4, said we could eat the meat. Well, verse 3 said we could eat the meat just like you eat green plants. But verse 4, but do not eat flesh with its life in its blood. And this is something else, that we see culturally where we have these
Kill a deer, drink his blood, and all that crap.
I just
You know what you said that makes sense though? I was thinking about that with the whole red meat thing. I remember okay, I'm 34. Growing up as a kid, I don't remember my grandma and eating steaks on a regular. That was not nothing. These rappers, and I'm saying I'm music because I'm a music person. I have been like all my life. I don't know where the spin was, but I know it was a few years ago. The spin was steak, lobster, like that, this being put into it. So now it's so dead now. Kids even eat it. I remember when cookouts at my grandma's house, we only got like the hamburgers and hot dogs. The grilled chicken and the ribs and stuff was for the adults. Like we weren't allowed to get those. We weren't allowed the pops that was in the cooler. There was a Huggy thingy, and it was out of Huggy to get you some water from the sink. They wasn't even about bottled waters back then. Like my girl would get some water on the sink or put your Kool-Aid. It was so different. So just to even think now, like because I didn't grow up with families that ate steaks on a regular. It would be a special thing where they had like. It might be a big holiday where you might. It was like
a status symbol.
It's definitely
like
a status symbol.
This whole
and it's
seafood
unhealthy.
boil craze is now like a status symbol. Like they take inanimate objects and make
like the adults was not living like that. I remember with because I remember I used to want a piece of like at a rib or something. Like they didn't have steaks for dinner. Yeah, definitely chips. Like. That was for the adult stuff. Like that was not for the kids. So even when he said that, I just thought about it. Like just thinking of how times changed as far as my parents wasn't out there, grandpa wasn't taking a cow. But I'm just laughing like because that is crazy. They was not eating those type of things on a regular.
Yeah.
I don't think
they knew better.
Yeah, they knew better. So it definitely probably wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I was watching like the Food Channel. They were going around the world, basically showing how people, slaughter animals and then what they do with the.
You could plug it in on the side of the couch.
With the pieces. So you have a lot of European cultures who, after they slaughter like a pig.
There's one of those on your side too.
After they slaughter a pig, they'll make a broth out of the blood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, and eat that and make it into like pudding and you know what I'm saying, blood pudding.
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of people are eating the blood and drinking the blood.
Yeah, the exact opposite. The exact opposite of what it says right there. Don't eat the flesh with his blood, with his life, with his blood. You're supposed to like. Okay. Yeah. So we see when we talk about the culture that we live in, and us now being on this quote unquote counter culture path where we have all these things that are going on that are the exact opposite of what the Most High said that he had for us to be doing. There's a reason why he didn't just make up these rules just for no reason. There's things that we learn from these things. He don't just not want for us just to eat the blood, but he says over here that you're not to eat the flesh with its life. It's blood. He's telling you the life is in the blood.
Mm-hmm.
The life is in the blood. Life, when you think about it from kind of a just a physical standpoint, blood carries I was gonna say it carries the oxygen through your body.
It can make you sick. Like when meat's not cooked all the way.
Even if it is clean, like
Yeah, but think about what could be happening though. If you think about the blood is carrying things throughout your body. Like when people circulation get bad and like they can't get blood to their feet and everything, and it start like getting discolored because you're not getting no oxygen down there. But like your lungs is in your chest, but your lungs, they the oxygen, they do something inside of your complicated body and get oxygen in your blood, and it takes it all to the places where, like, if you get choked out, if you get choked out, you could get choked out from not getting no air,
Right.
or you get choked out from not getting no blood to your brain. So when that oxygen stop going to your brain,
that's what that
you
button
pass
is.
out.
You know, people say, hit him on a button, hit him on a button. That button cuts off oxygen and blood.
I think what's happening, I think that is actually your brain because in your brain is encased in liquid.
Yeah, it's encased in liquid.
So
Shakes it, huh?
so you hit that because if you see
It's
it coming,
combination.
is you can brace for it,
Yeah.
which helps you from getting knocked out. But when you don't see it coming, you're not able to brace for it, you get jarred, and then your brain is shaking up in there. You just, it's that little switch.
It goes straight to sleep. Out, night.
Yeah, and your whole situation. But I was just saying all that just to say these things is all traveled through your body in the blood. Now I don't know this. But somebody told me this. I don't know if it's true. Just what I heard.
Right.
And you could just take it like that. But I don't necessarily like deer meat that much. But
mess with
but somebody told me that gamey taste that you taste when you eat deer is actually adrenaline. That gamey taste is adrenaline.
It goes to,
that's going through their blood when they're trying to run. Because you don't trap deer. You shoot it somewhere, whether with a bow and arrow or and they're running for their life. They don't know what's going on while they're doing that. That adrenaline is pumping through their body.
So scary.
Yeah.
They're always on edge.
Yeah.
They even drink water. They be scared when you drink water.
Even if you like shoot it, unless it's like a killed instantly.
That mug is running.
Like if you shoot a deer, it's gonna be afraid, like just being shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that adrenaline's still gonna pump through the body.
Mm-hmm.
So because they're so like ready to fight. You know what I mean? That's how they've been made.
They be like,
yeah. Head pop up.
You know what?
That's how they be looking.
Hey,
you know what? It's funny. It's funny you're talking about blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the topic of blood, I was speaking to someone the other day. We was talking about fringes and the cords of blue and things of that nature. And as I was explaining to one of my friends about when Adam and Eve sinned and they tried to cover their sins by sewing fig leaves, but they was unaware that y'all actually slaughtered an animal, spilling the blood that actually covered their sin. I said, now, this is going to be some speculation to my own interpretation. So I say, I may be wrong, I may be in error, but sometimes I do that. So I was thinking, the blood. What color is the blood in your body before it becomes airborne? Purple. No. It's blue, right? So I said,
I don't know if it's blue.
Yeah, it is blue. Because, well, they're talking about through the screening and all that course, whatever they call it, the vein. But then I remember in Barak, 2nd Barak 30-35, where Yah describes all his favorites. He never said his color though. But I said, wow, why was that blue so important to him when he said, put that blue on that border, put that blue on there. So I thought about that and I said, well, if blood is blue before it becomes airborne, I said, wow, then the ultimate sacrifice was Yeshua, the shedding of his quote unquote blue blood before it became airborne and red. I said that was very interesting because when you talk about blood having life, that's what it take me to, back to the beginning in the Garden of Eden, where the first covering of sin was by the shedding of blood, and God performed that himself. That's very interesting, you know.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting now, and I'll be done. Abraham, for instance, when he was taking Isaac to sacrifice him, I don't know what was going through his head, but he did have faith because Isaac said, Father, the wood and fire we have, but where's the lamb? Now, his response, it took me a couple of years to realize this. His response, when he initially said is, you know, Yah will provide for himself a lamb. You get it? He'll provide it for himself, not for us, for himself. A lamb for the burnt offering or sacrifice. And I thought about that. I said, that's exactly what he did too, man. Spilling the blood. That's all I wanted to say about the blood. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought about the blood being blue and a ZZ.
Yeah, but that's what made me think about that.
But then again,
that's only my speculation.
I did wonder where do you pick those colors from?
Yeah, why does it have to be blue?
But then again, it's like, why do they call them red blood cells?
Yeah, red blood cells.
And then again, is there some transformation or something that happens after you? Okay,
well,
they say when oxygen touches the blood,
yeah, it turns red.
That's when it turns red.
Now,
so we're breathing in oxygen. Is the lungs transforming that to keep it? Is it veins just blue? No, we can't. That's why I was like, how do you really know?
There's a lot of speculation on that. But when you look at the red cells,
but if it is blue, then that's pretty interesting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
How would you ever?
I don't know.
Say you put a camera into a vein.
It's not blue.
Because there has to be air for that camera to get in.
Right.
That's what turn it red anyway.
Oh, the air gets in.
That's why I be looking at it.
There's you got to be in a vacuum or something like that to really see that. So how do they know? That's this question that I got to find.
Yeah, you do. There's a lot of questions out there. But then I go back to this. Why did y'all enforce a cord of blue and not red?
Well, the sky's.
I ain't questioning it.
I think the sky's blue. The sky's
blue, yeah, but it's light blue. And somebody gonna tell me, "Oh, you can put light blue in there. That's for women."
It don't
tell you what color blue.
Yeah, it could just be blue.
Yeah.
I had what I was gonna say about the whole blood thing, because it tells you not to eat the blood.
Right.
So at this time, if you separate the blood from the meat, can you then eat it?
Eat the
blood.
Eat the blood.
If at this time it doesn't say don't drink the blood, don't eat the blood, so don't eat it with the meat.
Oh, you saying here?
Oh, you saying here?
Once you separate it, at this point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you mean at this point in time in the scripture?
Now,
well, why would he deliver just this point and then you get it late? Like it's like giving it to you as a detail thing.
Well, we was saying earlier, like we even seen even just up until chapter 9, we see there was a time when you didn't eat meat at all, you just ate vegetables, and then now he's saying you can have meat, but don't eat the blood. But but we know later that it's more than just with the blood. You just can't have you're not eating no blood all at all.
I think maybe what happened is that man, maybe didn't eat the meat with the blood, but they start eating the blood separate. And then he came and did this separate thing, like, look, don't eat the blood. Don't drink it.
I'm sure man
did that because I watch people do the scripture like that. Like I watch people who actually are following the script, but they well look, it say this right here, so it didn't say that. Just any way to finesse their wickedness, to justify what they're doing, they're going to pull the scripture like over this, like they won't.
It didn't say exactly
this.
Now
they want to hit you with technicals.
The reason why I said that is because people. I hear what you're saying, but people aren't using the Bible. But if you look around these different cultures, they are bleeding the animals when they kill it.
They bleed it out, but they keep the blood separate and eat that separate.
Yeah.
So this might be something that comes from generation to generation, which they did is they did take the blood out, but they kept the blood and still ate it. So that's why it brought me to this scripture.
Yeah.
Could it be something that maybe?
I mean, it could be that to me. To me, I mean, we need boundaries.
Yeah,
we need to be told exactly what to do, or else we just gonna make up our own thing and just do crazy things. And you know, that's what we see with Torah. Torah, there's a lot of things, different scenarios that's in the scriptures that the Most High gave to Israel, kind of just, being able to cover all these bases, knowing that if I don't sit up here and say that you need to do this, this, and that, you're going to just do the exact thing that I don't want you to do. So I got to sit up here. When I sit up, you think about when you talk to your kids, you got to sit up there and step by step, go over there, get that thing from over there, take it over there, bring it right back over to here, and then you could go ahead and do that thing. And then the kid want to skip steps and all this other thing. You got to sit up there and lay everything out. Go to the store. Go this way because I don't want you to go over by these people over there. You know what I mean? So you have to say exactly what you want in order to get the end that you want. Now over here, like you say, I don't know if that's when you look at it, it looks like it's a combined thing, and we do know later that there's a total prohibition, verse 5, but only your blood verse 5, but only your blood for your lives I require from. Oh, that's talking about the other thing I was talking about. Eating necessarily, that's about like killing somebody. But again, I think that, back to the idea of the Most High changing, right? It's not a change. It's not him changing when we don't have all of the specifics, and then he's giving us the specifics later. We can't look back and say, well, he changed over here. He's given different requirements and different things that's acceptable, because again, if you're starting from zero, sisters was fair game. And then it got to a point when they wasn't fair game.
Well, let me continue. So this dot pattern, right? Because this is why I'm saying it. Because if you figure there were Shem, Ham, and Japheth that come off of the boat, and only the commandments were given to,
Torah, yeah.
Well, yeah, the Torah was given to Shem, the descendants of Shem. And so you figure Ham and Japheth are still doing customs from way back when. So their descendants from off of the boat are maybe doing the same things that they did before they got on the boat.
Why was it only given to Shem?
Well, that's the line that Israel comes through.
Yeah, but there's brothers.
He probably was chosen.
But that's the thing, is that's why I got off the whole Gentiles can't be saved thing.
Because that's our brother.
Right, yeah, because it's our brother in the plan, that they were always in the plan. So when you read scripture, it can make you feel like, man, Gentiles ain't gonna make it. But then you read it deeper,
and
and
you
can
can
see
talking
that.
about that with the whole African thing. Like, okay, we're Israel, and we're not fully stemmed from Africa as far as like the natives, but the natives, like the Ethiopians, the other races, don't really is our brothers though, because that's our fathers. That's his nephews.
Yeah, I guess if you go back far enough. But in terms of it, the law going to Shem, he's saying that because that's what we had here with as far as the original families. But Israel came through Shem's line.
I know he came. I just was wondering why it was only given to Shem.
Well, it was given to his descendants.
Not even all of Shem.
Okay, I was going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all this.
Yeah, as it got down to Israel, Israel goes back to Shem. Not to say that the Torah went to Shem, it went to Israel, but those was his descendants. Yeah. Yes.
That's who was going to Israel.
Yeah.
But that's all. That's why I thought.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because it seems like something is custom that has been passed down from generation.
Yes. Somebody started doing it somewhere, and then when you look around, you see a lot of people be sitting up there doing this weird stuff with blood and drinking it and all kind of.
The more I get in the Bible, the more I get. Like we're in what, First Kings now. The further I get in the Bible, the more I see that a lot of history from other cultures, they still have pieces of some form of the truth that we're in. Like it's so you can tell that the customs. You could tell because they do some of our things, but they don't do this. So you could tell like how that history, basically you could tell history all comes to one. At one point in time, there's some form of connection to one because there's all bits and pieces. But it's just they took what they wanted from what they did, and it's probably just passed down just from practices from their ancestors or their family line. But you can just tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'll be interesting when we get to Genesis 10. But all right.
Okay, so let's keep going over here. Let's look at real quick, we'll talk about the fact that when we think about the idea of life being in the blood, and in verse 5, but only your blood for your lives are required from the hand of every beast, I require from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I require the life of man. Verse 6, whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed, for in the image of Elohim has he made man. So we see over here where we have a clear kind of prohibition. We saw when Cain killed his brother that he obviously did something that was wrong. But over here, is at least it's written out for us, we're able to see where that thing is visibly, as far as scripture is concerned, in place, where there's a connection between man in terms of being the image of Elohim, and to take that life is something that is a serious situation. We look at the slaughtering of animals, even it's not a this idea of slaughtering of animals. You have this if like sin, when sin, you have its transgression, you really actually should lose your own life. And so we have this substitutionary thing that we do with these sacrifices, where there's a life that's lost. It's not necessarily your life, but with that, you're able to see that life, that loss of life, and it's like, again, we think about as eating meat. We don't think about the fact that an animal got killed in order to even get to that place. Again, because we're separated from this whole situation. But when you do think about it, especially when you look at these little animals with their little cute little faces and everything, you know what I mean? It's a different thing. Like, John, you actually took part in the slaughtering of an animal before. I never did that before. I never seen an animal that I'm getting ready to eat.
I can't do it.
When it was alive and then it was dead. Oh, see, I'm removed. I never seen nothing like that before. But so there's a piece that's missing in that importance of the life when we get disconnected from that. So again, we look at the slaughtering of these animals. It's not a direct correlation. It's not as if a man's life is like worth the same as this animal necessarily, but you get that idea of that life and its importance. And even when you think about the Passover lamb, how you had it for those 4 days, and you was with it for that time, and you probably, you sat up there and you probably did stuff with the lamb, and you got attached to the thing over 4 days. You get a new pet. How long do it take for you just to love that little pet?
Man.
Probably about 4 days. And then imagine after that time, but then now you got to kill the thing.
Yeah. Especially as young. It's like interesting too, like, because all babies are cute. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, all babies are anything. You see a little lizard, oh, it's cute, you know?
Yeah.
It get big, you like, man, that thing, you know, kill it. You know what I mean? You like, kill it. So yeah, it's like interesting you bring that up. Like, get that attachment.
Oh yeah, I see that cute baby raccoon. Raccoons are
And they mean too.
I like them. I had a team of them.
Even the grown-up ones is kind of cute.
Furry.
Yeah.
Something else I think that's ugly, but it was
Animal
It's that little Roberts.
Animal mafia.
no, there was another ugly animal now that you said that I'm like, oh, it's cute. And it was little. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. But saying all that just to say, we have kind of that picture of the fact that there needs to be blood for blood, and the seriousness of it, at least according to verse 6, where it's connecting man as being in the image of the Almighty, right? So when you're doing this shedding of man's blood, you're shedding the image. You're killing the image of Elohim that's in man. So we don't think about man as being. We don't think about man like that as far as being the image of Elohim. Maybe he's just our enemy. Maybe he's just our enemy based on this little silly thing that I just made up in my mind. Right? Oh, we just read that psalm today. We're talking about if I sit up here and hate this person for no reason, may your judgment come on me.
Yeah.
We just got finished reading that over there in the Psalms today. There's importance and value in man, and the Most High is the only value that He's putting here on man is the fact that man is in the image of Elohim. So
I'm not to cut you off, but that's the deepest thing I feel like the world has separated us from, like society. When you got war, when you got materialism, it's like you can put a price on anybody's head.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, this material gain that's going to deteriorate. And the only thing that we can't form or manifest is life itself. The miracles like that are the most valuable on this plane, only the Most High can get. And we don't value that or put that on the level that things that man put together with hands. Oh, I'll kill you for that. Literally a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
it ain't even worth nothing.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's just but see, I mean, it is worth something because you can tangibly transform it into land. I mean, it is, but to get back to the metaphysical aspect of it, like, I mean, it's like the societal, we've been conditioned to decide in our mind, like, what society is and what is important, what's not, based on what we see. And it's like that's what's being controlled.
You were saying earlier about just being programmed.
Yeah.
Or it's like ain't nobody crossing the street until they hear the noise, or everybody get on the T, and like it's just like programmed.
I see people downtown every day that line up for the specific bus at a certain time. Like literally standing in line every day.
Mhm.
And that is a form of programming. Like,
Yeah.
if you cut into this line, there is going to be a price to pay.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But the people in this line, like, and I didn't know that there was a system. So I just
Exactly.
stood there and
Yeah.
got on the bus. Oh, you jet me. I didn't know. I didn't know I jet you, sir.
But speaking of program, Chris, I don't know if you remember, like, you stopped, like, when you used to Jenny, this was around, Jenny be around. You didn't like, I would be telling you how much I love music, and you'll be like, that music is this, that, and the third. I'm really just from listening to what you said about program. Now, where I'm at in life, I control, well, I thought I was controlling certain things that I'm listening to. But it'll be, but me just loving, my love for music will have me still listening to even an older rap song or whatever that was a classic. But now I'm just sitting here thinking, that music, just even hearing what you said about whoever you was talking to, wanting to be talking about being rich. And I find myself sometimes not being comfortable where I'm at and think of for when times are better for me on a financial standpoint. But I'll hear a song, literally, and this is not even a song saying anything wicked, but it's programming me to the struggle. Programming me to like knowing what it's like to not have and what it's gonna be like when you do have, which is not good because that shouldn't even be a focus. So like, yeah, that was great. I wasn't saying like, dang, only time I think of where I want to be financially, it might be right after I was hearing something, and it'll make me be relatable because a lot of these even older music, it's for the broken. They're singing broken music because they know the broken ones are listening to it. So it's feeding their broken spirit. You know what I mean? Or feeding their struggling spirit because we know the struggles. So like, yeah, I was a lot.
Yeah. So when we think about all of these things and we think about the value of a man or the devaluing of man with all of these different programs that are, telling you what things are valuable, what things aren't. You know what I mean? All based on some outside influence. It don't have anything to do with what the Most High is saying is valuable. Um, it is again, it's these ideas that pull us away from the natural order of the way that the Most High has set things up. He has an order, he has a way that he wants for us to be and for us to live. And then the life that's around us, the culture that we're so much engulfed in, is pushes us in the opposite direction. And we could look back at the times of Noah and see, that was what he came out of, where unrighteousness just became the norm. And he was he was obviously abnormal in relation to everyone else because only he was righteous, everybody else was wicked. Wickedness was the norm. What he was doing was the exception. Which, that's what our time is now. But we have to be able to be in the place where we're as Noah was in terms of being happy about this promise that the Most High made in terms of returning back to the cycles of life that the Most High set up. If we don't care about the things that are pleasing to the Almighty, so what if it's going to be wintertime and summer? Like, I'm not concerned with these cycles of life because it doesn't even matter. I just look on the calendar or whatever, look at my watch or whatever. I can know what time it is. If I'm in tune with what he's doing, it's comforting and exciting to me if I know that you're going to maintain this structure that you set up. So we live in this time where we're told what's valuable, we're told what things we should be concerned about, as opposed to having the Most High tell us what things are valuable and what things that we need to be. Like, it's interesting that we even see here that it's necessary for this to even be said, that you can't just go and just take someone's life, right? But as men, as humans, you know, the propensity, the ability for you to get to a place where you place so much value on a thing, so much more so that it's there can easily be a time and a place where this thing, whatever it may be, that you're able to raise up above a human being. Whether, you know, and that's what happens. I guess at the end of the day, it all boils down to, you know, the value that you place on the thing. If I sit up here and look at these people out here, to us, you know, these people out here dying for no reason. But in that person's mind, for that minute, there was a valuable thing that was being challenged. Maybe it was just my pride, or maybe it was just a tennis shoe. You can look at it, and however dumb it is, however dumb we think it is, at some place, they put value on this thing and made that thing more valuable than life.
A lot of that goes back to what Monet was saying, because a lot of it is programming, and the music has pretty much set the standard for why you should be killed. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things you are killed for. So says
Killable offenses.
So says my favorite artist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, a lot of the things that are going on has been programmed into the minds of the sheep. And, you know, they're just bad all the way to damnation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it is important to, you know, to cut off these channels that
Our
are
music gotta get cut off.
putting
Music
these thoughts and ideas into our minds.
Yeah.
Music is even greater than music's greater than the news. I mean, and when you
That's
think,
the standard of
and when
living,
you think
right?
of how I think of our culture, music goes all the way back. You know, throughout the reading, I see a whole chapter of a song that. So we just our culture is just music feels good to just our culture period, because music's the way that our ancestors expressed ourselves. So the way the wicked has used that against us, because our old when you listen to like the original blues, like the original, like even like what they call them Negro spiritual stuff, it was singing about struggle then.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always appeasing to the slaves. When the slaves would be going through stuff or whatever, they're singing these songs to make them feel songs of hope and stuff like that. And even when you think of Let My People Go, it's a feel good to the spirit. So they took that and they just infiltrated that. And now music is it was already programmed in my generation, definitely. It is.
But music has always influenced the masses.
It's been a main influence, but now where it's at now, it's on a wide scale. Like when you think of, I watched an interview a few years ago, maybe like 10 years ago. I watched the old interview of Biggie talking about, you know, where music has gone. I watched so many rappers talk about how it's going this far, and it's not for the good though. You know what I mean? It is. It's very popular on every scale. Like I'll be in certain businesses and surprised that they're playing certain songs, but it's not a good thing to us because Black people never had nothing. We think it's a good thing, but it's really, really not. When you actually listen to where the music has gone now, but even like I said, I'll listen to a song and I have tried to control my but like now, just even listening today, it just makes me not even want to hear it because it doesn't do any good for me and my spirit.
Well, let me say this real
It doesn't
quick.
do anything for me.
So I used to blame like the now generation music too. And then I started listening to the oldies.
Yeah, oh.
Loving you is right, bro. I don't want to. He's talking about adultery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it ain't.
I did the same thing. Yeah.
I was so old classic. It'll make me. I was so old classic, and I'll be like, it really.
That's what they talking about.
But even a clean, what you think is even someone's not talking about that. Why do I want to hear something about struggle? That's going to attack to my emotions. And emotions are not right. That's one of our main, I know it's one of mine. I can't speak her right here. Emotions is my leading problem. Emotions. And emotions are not good. So why do I want to hear something that's feeding my emotional spirit? Making me emotional.
But you know what? People need to understand, like, when Satan was disbarred from the heavens, what was his position? He was a minister of music. So guess what? He lost his position.
And guess what?
Wait a minute. He kept his occupation. So I did what I did. I did a study on that and a post on it a long time ago. I let Sister Mom read it. And when she likes something, I am very honored because she's my biggest critic. But it was called the Pied Piper, Satan, the original Pied Piper. And I talked about the story, what happened in Hamlin, about the Pied Piper getting rid of the rats, playing his music, and they didn't pay him. So he played his music and swayed the kids to follow him into the wilderness and left them forever. I said, what do you think Satan's doing today?
They use that image in Shrek.
He's doing the same exact thing because look at Woodstock. Look at the Grateful Dead, and he hit rap music. 187 on the Undercover Cop. Then come out with Tupac.
All started blues though.
Yeah,
the myth behind blues started with
that too.
With
that too.
Robert Johnson.
I mean, when you listen to music in whole, it does something to you. There's good and bad in everything.
It's like chants.
It's good and bad in everything.
It's like a chant. If you listen to it, it'll be like a chant.
I think what we have to remember is, okay, when you think about like think about if you like them little things that they use, the defibrillator thing, where they shock you and you about to die, and they shock you back to life. You know, you got electricity in you, right? That's frequencies. Sound is frequencies. You can't see it, but it's a wave thing. And music, yeah, and music is that same thing. It's all frequency. So when you listening to that music and you get on that frequency, that stuff is just good. There was a thing where they sat up there and was monitoring these kids when they sat up there, like you sit up there and look at kids, how they sit up there and just is like in a trance looking at TV shows. Something happens in your mind, just opens up in your mind. That information is just pouring in there. But the thing that's doing it is the music. They learn about nursery rhymes or whatever, but it's a music. It's on that frequency. It's opening something in your mind, and then some just. If I don't sit up here. I never was one who would sit up there and remember like song lyrics. Like if you sat up here and asked me to sing some old song lyric, I can't really, I don't know. But when that thing come on, I know all the words. Right? Because that thing get opened up and you get in that frequency, boom, it just come right out.
Recite the song off the rhythm, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Once it come on, I gotta get the
because something's opening up. Not even to say, I don't know what it is, but what I'm saying is that it's that frequency that you get in line with. So now, when you sit up here now, you have this understanding that, you know, there's this connection that can be made. You could put anything to it.
I'm about to say, I researched that a little bit. Basically, it's a hypnotism.
What's that?
It's a hypnotism. So basically, how you were saying, everything's off frequency. And that's one thing too that, just a little sidebar, when I was studying the scriptures, I'm like, there's a reason why the Most High tells you to do everything. Right? You might not get it, understand it, but me knowing that, me in a time of information, and now with the sciences, you can kind of look at a lot of reasons why he would tell you not to do something because of adverse effects of doing this or that.
Right.
So exactly with the music, TVs operate. The average TVs that operates at 60 hertz. They got the new TVs that go to 120, 240. All that means something. You're at 5G, 5,000 gigahertz. Your Wi-Fi.
Even your phone.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they're talking about how it's going to be hard on
the body
and the equilibrium of the 5G. Yeah, they said 4Gs was bad, but 5G
that'd be 5G is going to destroy it.
And they showed how frequency, how that it could make water. They showed water coming out of a hose, right? and they hit this little switch, and the water by itself just stopped and started spinning around and like this real slow. And it's like, if this frequency can do this to this water, imagine what it's doing to the fluid in your brain, in your body.
Exactly.
That's why I just start putting my phone down though, because I remember a time where I could sit on social media, even with a job. I'm not even lying.
Just mindless scrolling.
Straight and like this might have been maybe a month and a half ago. I asked myself like, why don't I remember life before this? Like what was I don't. This is how. I don't remember what I was doing. Like prior to being a trend, because it's a trending thing.
Right.
And me not being able to connect that is what made me want to control that. Like because like why don't I remember what was I doing prior to this being the trend? What was I doing for fun? I know already I'm not playing a lot of music, but I just don't remember the fascination with it. So why is this so much of a so yeah, I can just imagine because
Your attention spans are decreasing.
it's so bad. It used to be like
It's crazy.
and it's still like that automatically. I won't even want to like I'll automatically just go tap the app real quick.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Even when I believe
That's
that,
bad.
I was still turn my phone on and go to the spot where the app was located.
It's automatic.
So you bookmark it, like
I
gotta hold it right there.
I had to like. I mean,
But think about what that is though. Think about what that is in you.
Conditioning and programming, like we're
Yeah,
robots.
yeah. Crazy to feel what I said real quick. Just they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Listen, we was at a wake. We was at our cousin's wake, at our cousin's mom's wake, and they just had a newborn baby. Now he's probably a couple months, 6 months. Like that. Now he was having a fit. I'm talking about he was having a fit. That's what they did. Give him a phone. And as soon as they gave him the phone, he was just cool, and he was just like,
At 6 months.
listen, I'm talking about he is having a fit. Wasn't no bottle, we ain't giving him none of that. We gonna give him that phone. They give him that phone, and whatever, and he was cool. I said,
Wow. Thing on YouTube, he was like,
I'm like, and I was just thinking, like,
fascinating.
I was like, wow, this is crazy.
But I'm saying that it's not like it's magic.
Yeah.
It's just that frequencies. It's real. I'm saying it's just real tangible things. That's real. It's frequency. It's not like mystical. It's just frequency. So when so thinking about music, where it could be something that we got a whole book of Psalms, the biggest book in the whole thing, where it's all songs. Where it could hold on one second. It could be something that's positive, but now just think about, we don't got to think about it. We can see what happens with that negative influence is how much that's going to influence you, whether you're thinking about it or not. Just that music, just getting in there through them frequencies. But go ahead.
They taking the song. Music make you move. They
they
tell you the truth.
But I remember that thing you had us watch, and he was like, even when we laugh, so we tell them the truth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the rabbi said that even when we lie, we tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And that's so crazy because they do. Like
Yeah.
it'd be right there. It'd be like it'd be right there in your face. You didn't say it. You just said it.
But that's like even with this technology, like this, what we have has been out for decades before we even get it. Like, so what we think is new is really not, and they're on to the next thing. Like, so they definitely know what they're doing.
But now we're bringing our kids into it because just think of how I just said that I don't remember. I can't like
Well, you just said that has a thing back like
what was I doing? Yeah, what was we
2000?
doing? But our kids is being born into this.
Yeah.
Like I seen somebody say, my girlfriend asked me how you know her, and he said I grew up with her on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That sounds crazy.
I'm like, why that funny?
Yeah, because I did that too about class reunion. Remember that? You remember that, Chris? I posted up when I was like, they asked me the same thing. It's like, I go, damn, how do you know all those people? I said, oh, we all go to Facebook. We all go to Facebook. You know, there's no graduation because it's bad until it's done.
I'm like, congrats on the job. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, your mom put it on Facebook. He didn't know you from the pen and paper. Like,
Wow,
I see him. I felt so
that happened to
awkward.
me too.
Like, you know, coach this person.
Yeah.
I see him on
Somebody
Facebook.
said that they be looking at their nieces nieces and nephews from Facebook.
Yeah.
Like I seen y'all whole birth. I see y'all graduate. Like I feel like y'all like my nieces and nephews.
It's crazy.
I'm like, this is really crazy.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit
Good.
and put something out there that thought I had about verse 6.
Verse 6.
Whosoever sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed.
Mhm.
For in the image of Elohim made he man. Do you think that the Most High in this thought process was Yeshua?
Yeah.
In this thought process, like, did the Most High feel like?
What you mean?
didn't
What you
feel
mean?
like-
What you
so
mean?
did
What?
the Most High not only send Yeshua for man, but also for himself? Like the scripture O'Day was talking about, where
Right.
it said that he
Sacrifice
would
for him.
provide a
Yeah.
sacrifice for himself.
Right. Well, I believe
So-
that, Chris.
So does this tie into the Most High shedding man's blood and sending his son?
Hold on. I don't know what you mean by. I don't know what you mean by
Oh,
for
yeah.
itself though.
Because he sheds man.
That's
he
what
shed
the
man's
scripture
blood.
says, that when Aaron took his son on the mountain and he told him,
Abraham. Yeah.
Abraham.
Well, for itself would be in terms of the sacrifice was to cover. When you talk about sacrifice and atonement, is a covering, right, and a holding back of the wrath. So the Most High is the one who has the problem. So the sacrifice is for him, right? It might be on your behalf, but it's for him.
But what I'm saying is, so this was right after the flood,
Yeah.
where I asked earlier, did he have that thought like, oh man, I shouldn't have did this?
Right.
And then, he goes on to say that he's going to require blood for blood, and man is made in the image of Elohim. This is another one of the moments where, looking forward, I'm going to send my son as a sacrifice for man.
Well,
because of what, like my involvement
I
in the
don't.
situation. Not saying he's guilty of anything.
Yeah.
But I like that theory because
I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
because when you think of, there's a lot of times in the scripture that Yah would change his compassion, even when he would talk to Moses, or when he would change his, like, even though he said he would cut off, like he would still change and have compassion. So even though he is the Almighty, he makes no mistakes or whatnot. I didn't get that perception. I'm getting what you're saying as far as like, yeah, that he probably feel like I did just wipe out everything. I won't do it again. And just being an example, like, given this.
What I seem to like, there's like a thread going through the scripture where, the Most High is like, making sure that he's on par with his own word. You know what I mean? And that, like Yeshua did everything. He kept the law as well. So it was like the Most High was like, well, I'm telling y'all to do it. I'm going to do it too. I'm going to govern, my situation by what I'm telling y'all to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
But I see what you're saying only to an extent, because like when you think about like when you think about the instances of the Most High saying that he repents of a situation, he didn't know what was going to happen.
That's what I always say. Like when people bring up that argument,
Of course, he knew what was going to happen.
He know the end from the beginning.
Of course, he knew what was going to happen. So you can't think about it in that way. Those things are going on not for his benefit, but for our benefit. So we have to be able to kind of adjust our thinking, even if we can't even understand what is going on, but know that if he's outside of time and space, if time and space is a thing, there's nothing. He's not able to be contained. The Most High is not able to be contained in the thing. So if there's a thing, we can't put him in it because he's too big. The heavens of heavens can't contain him, it says. There's nothing that's big enough where he's able to get inside of it. But we, in our finite minds, can only think about boxes. We can only think about containers and things that's in it. When we think about Yeshua, he lived out this life in, I'm saying the man Yeshua lived out this life um and even the way that we think about the Most High is really in a physical way, like, because that's the only way we can think about things is in a physical way, because that's what we are in this little frivolous um kind of mind that we have. We're only able to think about things in this realm. So he gives it to us like that so that we can get it. We think about the idea of the Father and Son and all of these things are things that concepts that we understand in this realm that I don't know how much they even apply outside of this realm. How could they? It's just a way that we're able to be able to understand these things. So I think when we think about the idea of the Most High potentially needing a sacrifice for something that he has done, I think it falls short of the character of who he is. If he's all knowing, all of this stuff is sits inside of a plan. And we can see what the plan is. The plan is that we always needed to have his intervention in the situation, being the Yeshua and the Spirit inside of us, even from the beginning.
Right.
So I think that we're able to see Yeshua in terms of being a man that gave his life for man here, but I think it's taking it a step too far to think that the Most High needed to put the man there for his own situation, because it's clearly for our situation. There's something that has went awry in our situation, and even when you think about it, if Yeshua was slain from the foundation of the earth, the minute that the Most High made man, as soon as he formed man and breathed that breath of life into him, before that he already knew what was going to happen. So just a very simple fact that you have a human being made the way that we're made, even in that there was going to be a problem, because a man is going to just automatically have these built-in curiosities and desires just based on this situation, which we have to assume that the Most High knew about that prior. But if Yeshua was slain from the foundation, he set up the solution to the problem before it was a problem.
Right. Which is what he described in Genesis 3:15. You know,
So
about to
is
come from the seas. No, it's okay, bro.
so is this like entertainment for the Most High? Because he knows the beginning and the end, and it's already, the sacrifice has been already made. Is this like the show? Is it like,
I wouldn't say that, but what you have is you have these creations that are able to make a choice towards him. We see that there's people, I'm not saying people, but creations that are able to turn away from him in the angels.
But he already knows who that's gonna be.
Well, regardless of who he knows who's going to be or not, I'm saying there is a created thing that was formed and created who is able to choose to follow him, as opposed to these things that was created with that sole purpose in mind. Not to say that man wasn't created for that, but it's like we have to come to that kind of understanding to turn into our purpose. But I think the process
is for us.
The process, I think, is for us, and to not just make these robots. If I make a thing to serve me, and all it could do is serve me, that's one thing. But if I make this thing that has to come to some type of realization to turn towards me, I think that's a different thing.
Because the appreciation and love will be there all the more.
Yep.
So is that why after the flood, like, there was still this wickedness? Because I always wonder, like, after he wiped the earth clean, like, why do we revert back to those old ways? Like,
because at the end of the day, you still just a human being with this will and desire of your own inside of you. And again, I was talking about this earlier, where we see with him doing that in terms of the flood, nothing changed. You still a human being.
Yeah.
But there's still necessity for Yeshua to come.
And that's where I was
but so the provisions are made for him to come, and we see kind of the prototype in Israel in terms of the Most High making this covenant with this people, and giving them the Torah. But again, if we take it back to the beginning, is the end result is for humanity, is for mankind as a whole. But the human beings in our in this body that we live in, the problem is that we have this spiritual Elohim, the invisible Elohim, and everything that we look around we can see and touch, and those things become more valuable than the non-corporal things, the intangible, the spiritual things. As I can see it. Oh, it's right over there. I need that right now. I might pay later, but I'm more concerned with this, what I can get over here that's standing with me, because we're human.
Right.
But we can see, when we look at the big scope of thing, we see where he had this people. He gave this people this Torah, this law, which governs us. Right? It wasn't able to change our hearts, but at least it was able to, if we stayed within it, we was able to be walk in righteousness. But again, the fact that Yeshua was slain from the foundation of the earth, even with Torah, even with having that standard, you still see that there's still, it's not enough, because we need to be changed on the inside.
Or to change on the outside.
So I'm saying that human beings are different in that we have this will, and we could, just as we could turn towards him, we could just as easily turn away. But he wants for us to willingly choose and turn towards him, and make that choice to follow after him, which, by the way, is in our best interest to do so. It's not as if we're like selling ourselves into some type of slavery or something. Um, it's for our own good. It's something that benefits us to do so. So I don't think we can say that there's entertainment value in it in terms of the Most High. I think it's there's love involved in it, where He created us, and he also, in creating us, He creates the best case scenario that we should go in, and all of the perfect situations for us if we're able to choose them over these things that we could look at. Um,
I want to use that.
Go ahead.
But I want to piggyback on what Chris said and bring it to what you just said. When Chris was reading verse 6, and he was asking, was that Yeshua at the time? Well, and I said I agree with him, because you got to think about it in the beginning. Well, you might not subscribe to Enoch, but Enoch 48 talked about how he got his name before time was, before everything was created. But in the Bible, when he performed that one slaughtering of the animal to cover Adam and Child's sin, he did it himself, right? Then he made the provision of what was going to happen. Now, you ever heard the saying? Now, I told Trisha that she loves this. You ever heard the saying, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself? Well, guess what? All through Scripture, look, Moses couldn't do it. Isaiah couldn't do it. Jeremiah couldn't do it. Daniel couldn't do it. None of them couldn't do it. So what you think he did? He did it himself. Because after he made this declaration to Satan about the woman's seed, he had to enter through his own creation, untouched by man's sinful seed, whatever. But he entered the world. He entered his own creation through his own creation, clothed by his own creation, walked amongst his own creation, taught his own creation how to accept him and his teachings and to view him as Father. Then turned around and sacrificed himself for his creation, that his own creation can be reconciled back to himself. And you tell me that he's not an awesome Elohim. Bad, man. Greatest of all time. I tell you the truth. Because in John 17, Yeshua said himself, he said, "Oh, Father, I glorified, manifested your name to those you've given me." Here's the key scripture I try to tell the Matt and them. The those you've given me. Who was given to him? Let's go back and say what he said. I've only come for the house of Israel. Granted, they rejected it, and salvation was then offered to the Gentiles. But he still told y'all, I've manifested your name to those you've given me. I did the work you sent me to do. Now glorify myself back to yourself as we were before the world was. You dig me? Man, I love tying scriptures together, man. Trigonometry. Hallelujah.
So I think that when we look at, there's definitely parallels, and we're able to see Yeshua in this. Can you push that close, John? Okay. There's definitely parallels when we see this whole idea of sacrifice and blood. And yes, we can see the image of, I think we think about the image of Elohim that man was made in. I think we have to look towards Yeshua, who is the image of the invisible Elohim. It says Yeshua is the image of the invisible Elohim. So I think we can see him absolutely in here. But the part that I get lost with is the fact, as if the Most High is offering some type of sacrifice for his own self. That's the part I just get lost.
Yeah, why you sacrifice for himself?
Well, I wasn't saying that as if like he sinned or anything. Like I wasn't saying that like he sinned, but I was saying that like you know he wiped out Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
like
saying?
yeah. So when we think about it, it seems like a horrible thing, and you can sit up there and think about all of these people sitting up there drowning
Oh,
in
no,
this
I'm not saying
water.
it's horrible because it makes sense to me.
Well,
Like, and, you know, today
yeah,
it
yeah,
needs to be done.
yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's about just utter wickedness being destroyed. The Most High is holy, and He can't have that stuff where He is, right? So if He's trying to have a holy people, and you got wickedness all around, again, when we get back to this idea of returning to nature and nature cycles, it's unnatural. I said this the other week. It's unnatural. It doesn't make any sense that darkness can't overtake light. That in and of itself is unnatural. The natural way would be for the reverse to be true, that light is overtaking darkness. I I I sit up here and say that darkness isn't anything. It's just the absence of light. So you can't even talk about what darkness is unless you include the 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 other aspect, which is light. The only way you can describe darkness is relating it to light because it's the absence of light. So, but why is it this so great of a thing where it's the thing that's dominant and overtakes everything when nature tells us that the exact opposite is true? If you're in a dark place and you put on some light, it's not dark anymore. But in this realm, because it's so flips upside down, darkness is the thing that rules. But again, if we think about this idea of returning back to the natural cycle of things, and getting back to the place where light actually does the thing that the Most High created light. The first thing He even said, "Let there be light." Returning back to to the natural order of things where light actually illuminates and destroys, eradicates darkness. But yeah, go ahead.
No, you mentioned it.
No, I'm just saying that when we look, if there's something that we could gain from looking at this part of scripture in terms of Noah coming out of the flood from a situation, being that righteous one, being the one to supposed to be perpetuating and multiplying himself, including that righteousness, and getting back to the cycle of things. That's where we have to be at in terms of being those ones who are going in another direction other than what we have going on, and not continuing these negative cycles where these unnatural things are happening, like darkness overtaking light, as if that's a thing that's actually possible, unless we're talking about like black holes or something like that. But just as unless we talk about these strange phenomenon, light overtakes darkness. So the Most High, at the end of the day, wants for us to return back to
Darkness overtakes light.
in these times. I'm saying He wants us to get to the place where light overtakes darkness, because that's just natural, right? Of course, you're the only one that I know that remains true to to that whole thing. Even though I don't agree with what you're saying, but I agree with your consistency. That's what I agree with. But I'm saying that we have to return back to the way that the Most High created things to be in their cycles of things, where the thing that He has established, the Creator, by the way, the thing that He established is a thing that grows and multiplies, and is perpetuated throughout the earth.
Right.
Okay, so you was gonna say
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that first of all, everything belongs to the Most High. He created it. It's his. He can do whatever he wants with it, right? And so in this case, he could tell man, don't kill another man because he's created in the image of Elohim, Elohim.
Killing me.
But I can do that because it's like if I build something and I tell you don't break what I just built, but then I break it, I can do that.
Yeah.
Because it's mine. I built it, right? So the Most High doesn't need a sacrifice for himself for destroying something that he created because it's his in the first place. But what I was saying is that he did it as like mercy and grace, like what I mean. That's what he provided, like that sacrifice for himself to be acceptable to himself as on our behalf. But he did it for himself too.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's not like he needs to repent for destroying something that he owns, but he did it for man, but actually for himself as well. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because when Yeshua was sacrificed, when he took on the sins of the world, what does it say? Y'all turned his back. Y'all turned his back because he can't look upon sin. He can't accept sin in his kingdom. So he had to make a provision. So he had to, let me do this myself and clean all this stuff up. I'm not going to destroy him again this time right through here, but I'm going to give him an opportunity. I'm going to give him an opportunity to come be reconciled back to myself. So I'm going to give him this plan. Bow. He hit you with the salvation plan. The contract is accept Yeshua or not.
But I do think that the Most High had a soft spot.
I do too.
Where he looked at after the flood, he looked at everything that was done, and I think he was like, took a moment, like, I ain't gonna do it like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think he looked, you know what I mean? Because the Most High loves what he created.
Yeah, because
he said it was good.
It also says where he repented, but not in the same sense of repenting as we do.
Like he sinned.
No, it's not like he sinned and he had to repent. In other words, he does not change, but he has the right to say if I'm gonna do this or not. You know what I'm saying? So he seen that because they did repent and came back to him, that's like you getting ready to whoop Hiskey about something. And all of a sudden you see Hiskey change and he's doing all this. You might say, I'm not gonna whoop him. I'm gonna see how far he goes with this because I'm proud of him right now. So you recanting what you was going to do, So those was instances in the Bible where he actually done that.
But I think what we have to remember though is that what we have to remember. Let's look at it because what we have to remember, then we'll be done. What we have to remember is that the destruction piece of it wasn't what he wasn't going to do anymore. It was that particular method.
That method.
If we look at Genesis 9, let me see, Genesis 9 and 11. Let me go over there real quick.
Yeah, move up.
I know, but I don't have my cursor.
Oh, you don't have this cursor. Read.
Yeah, read 11, 12, and 13.
And I shall establish my covenant. This is what I love right here. And I shall establish my covenant with you. And never again is all flesh cut off by the waters of the flood. And never again is there a flood to destroy the earth. And Elohim said, this is a sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living being that is with you. Let me say that again. And every living being, quote unquote, that is with you for all generations to come. I shall set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth.
Can I read that verse 12 in the
King James?
James?
Sure.
And Elohim said, this is a token of the covenant which I made between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generation. So it's not just man, it's with the creature as well.
Yeah.
Dang, and he destroyed
Everything
them
that
too back
lives
then.
and breathes that's with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, but in terms of what we was just thinking about was the fact that there's a kind of a caveat that's with it in terms of he said that all flesh shall never again be cut off by the water of the flood.
Right, right.
Neither thou shalt again be a flood to destroy the earth. He's not going to do it in that way.
Right.
But there's going to be a new heavens and a new earth.
Right.
He's going to wipe out all iniquity.
And that does show you that there was more than just a few covenants.
He's just not going to do it. He's just not going to do it in this particular manner.
Right.
Because when we think about the fact that the Most High is just, when he operates in equity, right? So the things that he does not that he has to abide by his own rules, but he makes the rules that are according to how he would behave.
Right.
So in that regard, he does operate by the rules.
Right.
Because he made the rules based on how he behaves. He is the rules.
Right.
So that's how he operates. So he's not going to do something that's outside of that, even if we can't see how he's inside of it. He must be inside of it because he made the rules so that we can line ourselves up with how he is.
Right. And another thing is, this is what I tell a few of the listeners of Torah Only. You know, how can you have a new covenant that our forefathers wasn't even given or offered without the New Testament? Because the New Testament is a new covenant. That's where they fall. That's where they falter at right there. I mean, it didn't stop at 5 books. It didn't stop there. It wasn't the end of the story. You know, it just wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, we'll just end on this note, but just thinking about, we have to be able to look at these, again, we have to be able to look at these things that are physically happening and understand the spiritual things that are going on underneath. Even how we start off just looking at these burnt offerings, where it's talking about, it's never talking about the smell that he's smelling and it's sweet, but he's spirit. So it don't got nothing to do with what it smells like, right? There's spiritual things involved. So the problem that some of these people that you're talking about have is that they looking at these things from a carnal perspective, and they just not able to understand spiritual things. Right. So that's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. So when we think about, again, we think about the idea of returning back to these cycles, we look and we understand these physical cycles that go on so that we can understand what's spiritually happening in its cycles, how they go and move. And we have to always remember that even though, yes, we're looking at these things that physically, they literally did happen, what are the spiritual implications that are involved in all these things? Because at the end of the day, that's the thing that's most important.
Right.
Because this plane that we live in is just kind of it's just an in-between place to get us back to that spirit realm. That new heaven and new earth is going to be that transcended place. So we have these physical things to look to, but it helps us to understand the spiritual things because they're connected, because he made it that way so that we can understand. Again, we look back at Yeshua, he's teaching us these things so that we can understand the spirit realm better. So we have to be able to, when we look at these things, looking back over at these things that are physically going on, that are physically happening, we have to always seek to know what is the spiritual side of it. Because that's what this whole book is about anyway, right? Is becoming one with the Most High, who is spirit. Okay, so on that note, we are going to conclude this for now and get back into the Torah portion again next week.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.